When my best friend Larry asked me to teach him how to flirt with guys, I thought he was joking. He wasn't smiling. We were sitting in my car outside his apartment at almost midnight, engine off, windows cracked just enough to let the cool air in. We'd just come back from a party where he'd spent the entire night awkwardly hovering near the kitchen island, pretending to scroll through his phone. "You're good at this stuff," he said, staring straight ahead at the dark windshield. "At what stuff?" I asked, even though I already had a feeling. "At guys." He swallowed. "Flirting. Talking. Whatever it is you do." I actually laughed. "Larry, you've had more girlfriends than I've had bad Tinder dates." "That's not the point." His voice was tight. "Girls are different." That was the first moment I realized this wasn't some random curiosity. This wasn't him being drunk or bored or trying to win a bet. Larry was serious. For context, Larry and I have been inseparable since freshman year of college. We're both 24 now, living in the same city, working entry-level jobs we complain about daily. He's 6'2", broad shoulders, that easy athletic build that makes t-shirts look unfair. Dark hair that's always slightly messy in a way that feels intentional, even though he swears he doesn't try. I've been openly gay since I was 19. Larry was the first straight guy I ever came out to. He didn't blink. Just said, "Cool. You still coming to basketball on Thursday?" That's Larry. So hearing him say, "I think I might be into guys," felt like the ground shifted under my feet. He finally turned to look at me. His eyes weren't panicked. They were uncertain, vulnerable. I'd never seen him like that. "I don't know what I'm doing," he admitted. "And I don't want to look stupid." I should have been supportive. Casual. The good friend. Instead, my stomach flipped in a way I absolutely did not want to examine. "You want me to teach you?" I repeated slowly. "Yeah. Teach you how to flirt with guys." "Yeah. With who exactly?" He hesitated just long enough to make my pulse spike. "I don't know. Guys at bars. On apps. Wherever." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I just feel like when I try, I freeze. I overthink everything. And you just walk up to someone and it's effortless." Effortless. If only he knew. Flirting had never been effortless with him. I forced a shrug. "Okay. Hypothetically, what do you think flirting with a guy even looks like?" "That's the problem," he muttered. "I have no idea." The silence stretched between us, thick and charged. "All right," I said finally, trying to keep my voice steady. "Rule number 1. Stop thinking of it as some completely different species. Guys aren't aliens." He snorted softly. "Easy for you to say." "No, really." I shifted in my seat to face him fully. Flirting is about attention. Eye contact. A little confidence. A little teasing. It's not about memorizing lines. He watched me closely, like he was studying for an exam. "Show me," he said. I blinked. "Show you?" "Yeah." He gestured vaguely between us. "Pretend you're some guy at a bar." And I'm me. My heartbeat thudded louder than the faint hum of the city outside. "Larry," I warned lightly. "You sure you want to practice on me?" "Why not? You're safe." Safe. That word hit harder than it should have. I took a slow breath. "Fine. But you don't get to chicken out." "I won't." I straightened slightly, shifting my posture the way I do when I'm actually interested in someone. Relaxed shoulders. Slight tilt of the head. I let my gaze linger on him just a second longer than normal. "Hey," I said, softer now. "Haven't seen you here before." Larry's lips parted, but no sound came out. I raised an eyebrow. "See? You're already overthinking." He dragged a hand down his face. Okay. Let me try." He adjusted in his seat, turning toward me. I could see the nerves and the tightness of his jaw, but there was something else too. Determination. He looked at me. Not casually. Not like he always does. He held my gaze. For a second, I forgot this was practice. "Hey," he said quietly. That was it. Just one word. But the way he said it, low, steady, deliberate, made something spark in my chest. "Better," I murmured. He swallowed. "So what now?" "Now," I said, forcing myself back into teacher mode. "You don't look away immediately. Let it sit. Make it feel intentional." His eyes stayed locked on mine. The air in the car felt thinner. "Like this?" he asked. "Yeah," I breathed. His knee brushed mine as he shifted closer. "It was probably accidental." "Probably." "Is this too much?" he asked, voice dropping slightly. My brain short-circuited for a split second. "No," I managed. "It's good." Confident. He studied my face, searching for feedback, but there was something else there now. Curiosity. A flicker of something deeper. "What if I don't know what to say next?" he asked. "You don't need a perfect line." I replied. You just need to show interest. Ask something real. Or, I hesitated. Or give a compliment. He went quiet. Then, softly, you have really nice eyes. The words landed differently than they should have. That, I said carefully, was smooth. I'm serious. I forced a small smile. I know. We were too close now. His shoulder nearly touching mine. I could feel the warmth coming off him. This is weird, he whispered. Because it's me? I asked before I could stop myself. His gaze flicked down to my mouth for the briefest second. No, he said. Because it doesn't feel fake. That wasn't part of the lesson. My pulse pounded in my ears. Larry, I said quietly. If this is confusing, we can slow down. He shook his head almost immediately. No, I need to figure this out. And practicing on your best friend is the solution? A faint, nervous smile tugged at his lips. You said I shouldn't overthink it. I huffed a soft laugh, but it came out unsteady. Okay, I said. Then here's lesson 2. What's that? If you're feeling something, don't ignore it. The space between us felt charged, like the second before a storm breaks. His hand shifted on the center console, close enough that our fingers almost touched. And what if, he asked quietly, I don't know what I'm feeling yet. I held his gaze, my chest tight. Then, I said, barely above a whisper, maybe we find out. And that's when he closed the distance just a little more, close enough that I could feel his breath against my cheek. What started as a lesson suddenly didn't feel like practice anymore. I should have pulled back. That's the part 1 replay in my head the most. I should have laughed, broken the tension, reminded him this was just practice. Just 2 friends sitting in a car, pretending. Instead, I stayed exactly where I was. Larry's face was inches from mine now, close enough that I could see the faint scar near his eyebrow from when we wiped out on rented scooters 2 summers ago. Close enough to notice the way his breathing had changed, slower, deeper. Stephen, he said quietly. The way he said my name didn't sound like a question. It sounded like a warning. Or maybe a permission. Yeah. My voice felt rough in my throat. His eyes flicked between mine again, then down to my mouth. Is this, he hesitated. Is this what it's supposed to feel like? I knew exactly what he meant. The tightness in the chest. The heat crawling up the neck. That hyper-awareness of every tiny movement. Yeah, I said honestly. Pretty much. He nodded slightly, like he was processing that. And you're okay? He asked. With this? That's Larry. Even now, even in the middle of whatever this was, he needed to make sure I wasn't uncomfortable. I'm okay, I said. That was the truth. I wasn't uncomfortable. I was terrified. There's a difference. He inhaled slowly, then did something small but deliberate. His hand shifted, and this time his fingers did touch mine. Just barely. Like he was testing electricity. Neither of us pulled away. Okay, he murmured, almost to himself. And then he leaned in. It wasn't some dramatic movie moment. No sudden grab. No urgency. Just slow. Careful. Like he was approaching something fragile. Our lips brushed. Soft. Tentative. And for a split second, my brain went completely blank. I've kissed guys before. Plenty. Good ones. Bad ones. Forgettable ones. This wasn't forgettable. It wasn't even technically a real kiss yet. Just the faintest contact. Larry pulled back first, eyes wide. Oh, he breathed. My heart was hammering so hard I was sure he could hear it. Yeah, I said quietly. He stared at me like I'd just handed him a map to a place he didn't know existed. That wasn't, he swallowed. That wasn't bad. I let out a shaky laugh. High praise. I mean it. His voice was steadier now, curious instead of panicked. It felt right. Right. That word hit differently than safe had. He looked down at our hands, still touching. Can I? He stopped himself, exhaled. Can I try again? The question did something to me. He wasn't being reckless. He wasn't being impulsive. He was choosing. Yeah, I said. This time he didn't hesitate as long. His hand slid more firmly against mine, fingers threading between mine like he'd done it 1,000 times before. His other hand came up, hovering for a second near my jaw like he wasn't sure if he was allowed. I leaned slightly into the touch. Permission granted. His thumb brushed my cheek, slow and unsure, and then he kissed me again. Not just a brush this time. His lips pressed fully against mine, warmer, firmer. Still careful, but no longer accidental. My hand moved before I could think about it, settling against his waist. I felt him tense for half a second, then relax. He made the smallest sound in the back of his throat. Not loud, just surprised. The kiss deepened gradually, naturally, like we were both discovering the rhythm together. No rush, no force, just learning. And the scariest part? It didn't feel like I was teaching him anymore. It felt like he was responding instinctively. His grip tightened slightly on my hand. His thumb brushed my jaw again, slower now, more confident. When I tilted my head just a little, he followed without hesitation. When we finally pulled apart, the air between us felt heavier. He rested his forehead lightly against mine. "Okay," he said under his breath. "Okay. You good?" I asked softly. He nodded, but his eyes were dazed. "Yeah." A faint, almost disbelieving smile tugged at his mouth. "I think I'm really good." I huffed a quiet laugh, trying to lighten it. "Lesson going well." He looked at me then, really looked at me. "This doesn't feel like a lesson." There it was, the line we'd just crossed. I pulled back slightly, enough to see his whole face. "Larry," I said carefully, "we need to talk about what this actually is." He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "I know." The shift in energy was immediate. Not colder, just more real. "I don't want to mess this up," he admitted. "Us." "You're not," I said quickly. "But what if I am?" His jaw tightened. "What if I'm just experimenting and you're—" "And I'm what?" I asked gently. He hesitated. "And you're not," he finished quietly. That landed. I understood what he meant. I wasn't confused. I wasn't figuring myself out. I'd done that years ago. For him, this was new. For me, this was my best friend. "I don't need this to mean more than you can handle," I said honestly. "But I also can't pretend it doesn't mean anything." He nodded slowly. "That's fair." The silence wasn't awkward this time. It was thoughtful. "So," he said after a moment, "what now?" I considered that. "We slow down," I said. "We don't jump into labels. We don't pretend this didn't happen. We just see where it goes." "With you?" he asked quietly. "With me," I confirmed. His fingers tightened around mine again, like he needed the physical anchor. "I don't want to practice on random guys," he admitted. "Not right now." My heart skipped. "Okay," I said carefully. "Then who do you want to practice with?" His eyes held mine. "You," he said. Not as a joke, not as a tease, just simple and certain. The city outside the car felt impossibly far away. "Larry," I warned softly, "this stops being practice really fast." "I know. And if it stops being practice?" His thumb brushed slowly across my knuckles. "Then maybe that's not a bad thing." For the first time all night. He didn't look confused. He looked decided. And that might have been the most dangerous part of all. The next morning, I woke up convinced the night before had been a terrible idea. Not because I regretted it, because I didn't know how we were supposed to go back to being normal. Larry and I had plans to meet for coffee before work. Same place we'd been going to every Tuesday for almost a year. Same routine. Same table by the window. Except now we'd kissed. More than once. And he'd said he wanted to keep practicing. With me. I got there early, which I never do. Sat down. Checked my phone. Checked it again. Tried not to replay the way his hand had felt in mine. When he finally walked in, my stomach dropped. He looked exactly the same. Same black hoodie. Same messy hair. Same relaxed walk like he owned whatever room he walked into. For a second, I wondered if he was going to pretend nothing happened. Then he saw me, and his expression changed. Not dramatically, just softer, warmer, like there was a private understanding between us now. He came over, slid into the seat across from me. "Hey," he said. Same word as last night. But it didn't feel casual anymore. "Hey," I replied. There was a brief pause. Then, under the table, his knee pressed lightly against mine. Not an accident. I looked up at him. He didn't look away. "So," he said quietly, "this is normal, right? We're acting normal." I huffed a small laugh. "Define normal." He smiled, but there was tension in it. "I didn't freak out," he said. "That's a good sign." "That's a great sign," I agreed. Another pause. Then, like he was ripping off a bandage, I kept thinking about it. My heart skipped. "The lesson?" His eyes flicked down to my mouth for a split second. "Yeah," he said. "The lesson." The waiter came over, which was probably the only reason neither of us said anything else for the next minute. But the energy between us had shifted again. Not nervous anymore. Charged. When the coffees came and we were alone again, Larry leaned forward slightly. "I don't feel weird," he admitted. "I thought I would." "About kissing a guy?" I asked. "About kissing you." That landed somewhere deep. "And?" I asked carefully. And it didn't feel like some experiment. His voice dropped. "It just felt like you." I didn't know what to do with that, so I focused on my cup for a second. Are you sure you're not rushing this? I asked. This is a lot, Larry. He nodded. I know, but he didn't look uncertain. I've been thinking about stuff for a while, he went on. Last night wasn't random. That was new information. How long is a while? I asked. He hesitated. Since that night at your birthday, he said. I frowned. 6 months ago? You remember when that guy kept hitting on you at the bar? I did. The guy had been tall, confident, very into me. I'd ended up going home alone because I didn't feel the spark. Yeah, I said slowly. Larry looked down at the table, then back at me. I was jealous, he admitted. That word hit harder than anything else he'd said so far. You were what? I didn't like the way he was looking at you, he said, or the way you were laughing with him. I stared at him, trying to process. Larry, I said carefully, you've seen me flirt with guys before. I know, but that time was different. How? He held my gaze. Because I realized I didn't want you going home with someone else. The air between us went very still. That doesn't sound like curiosity, I said quietly. It wasn't, he admitted. I leaned back slightly, trying to keep my thoughts from racing ahead of reality. So why didn't you say anything then? He gave a small, embarrassed laugh. Because I spent the next 3 months telling myself I was just being protective, or drunk, or weirdly territorial. And now I kissed you, he said simply. And it didn't feel confusing. There was no drama in his voice. No panic. Just calm certainty. I took a slow breath. Okay, I said. Then we need to be honest about something. He straightened a little. Okay. This isn't casual for me, I said. I can't do the whole, let's mess around and see thing forever. I'm not asking for forever, he said quickly. I'm asking for a chance. A chance. To figure out if this is real, he finished. I studied his face. Larry had never looked this serious about anything that wasn't work or family. All right, I said finally. Then we take it slow. Relief flashed across his face. Slow, he repeated. We sat there for a moment, the tension easing into something steadier. Then, after a second, he said, almost casually, "Can I sit next to you instead?" I blinked. Why? A small smile tugged at his mouth. Because if I'm going to learn how to flirt properly, he said, I feel like proximity is important. I rolled my eyes, but my chest felt lighter than it had all morning. Smooth, I muttered. He slid into the seat beside me anyway. Our shoulders touched. This time, neither of us pretended it was accidental. After a minute, his hand moved between us, hesitating just long enough to give me time to pull away. I didn't. His fingers laced with mine under the table. Warm, steady, intentional. He exhaled softly. Still feels right, he murmured. I looked at him. Yeah, I admitted. The dangerous part wasn't the kissing. It wasn't the hand-holding. The dangerous part was how natural it already felt. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a quiet thought started forming. If this kept going like this was going to stop being practice a lot sooner than either of us planned. The first time Larry kissed me outside of practice, it wasn't planned. It happened 3 days later. We were at my apartment, sitting on the floor in front of the coffee table, surrounded by takeout containers and his laptop. He'd come over after work so I could help him set up a dating profile, which had turned into 2 hours of him rejecting every photo of himself. I look weird in this one, he said. You look normal, I replied. My smile looks forced. That's because it is. He nudged my shoulder with his. You're supposed to be supportive. I am supportive. I'm supporting honesty. He rolled his eyes but didn't move away. That had become a thing lately, him staying close. Shoulder to shoulder. Knee against mine. Casual contact that didn't feel casual anymore. Fine, he muttered. Pick one. I scrolled through his photos, trying very hard to focus on the task, and not on the way his arm was resting along the back of the couch behind me. Okay, this one, I said finally. He leaned in closer to see the screen. Too close. His shoulder pressed fully against mine now. I could feel his breath near my ear. Really, he asked quietly. Yeah, I said, my voice a little tighter than I intended. He didn't pull back. Instead, after a second, he said, You haven't asked me something. I glanced at him. Asked you what? Why I'm still doing this? The profile? Yeah. I studied his face. Because you want to meet guys. He held my gaze. Do I? He asked. That familiar tension crept back in, the kind that had been building slowly all week. Larry, I said carefully, if you're not actually planning to go on dates, this is kind of pointless. He didn't look at the screen anymore. I haven't talked to anyone on the app, he admitted. You matched with people yesterday. I know. So why not? He hesitated. Then, quietly. Because it feels weird talking to someone else when I'm already here. My chest tightened. With me? I asked. He nodded. The room felt smaller all of a sudden. You know this was supposed to be about you figuring things out, I said. Not just focusing on me. I am figuring things out, he said. How? His eyes dropped briefly to my mouth again. That was becoming a pattern. By paying attention to what feels right, he said. Silence settled between us. I should have redirected the conversation. Made a joke. Opened the app again. Instead, I asked the question I'd been avoiding. And what feels right? His answer came without hesitation. You. The word hung there, heavy and honest. My pulse picked up. Larry, I started. This is exactly why we said slow. I know, he said. I'm not rushing anything. This feels like rushing. He shook his head. No. Rushing would be pretending this is casual. His voice was calm. Steady. I'm not pretending anymore. That landed deeper than I expected. What are you saying? I asked quietly. I'm saying I don't want to flirt with random guys, he said. I don't want to practice. I don't want to experiment. He leaned a little closer, slow enough that I could have moved away. I didn't. I want to see what this is, he finished. His hand moved, resting lightly against my arm. Warm, careful, intentional. And if it doesn't work? I asked. Then it doesn't work, he said. But I'd rather know than keep pretending I don't feel anything. There was no panic in him anymore. That was new. Larry, I said softly, you've never dated a guy. I know. You've never been with one. I know. You don't even know if you'll still feel this way in a month. He held my gaze. Do you? That stopped me. Because the truth was, I didn't know either. This was my best friend. And somehow, in less than a week, he'd become something else too. Okay, I said slowly. Then we're both taking a risk. Yeah, he said. Another quiet pause. Then, softer, can I kiss you? The fact that he asked did something to my chest. Not impulsive. Not testing. Choosing. Yeah, I said. This time, the kiss wasn't hesitant. Still gentle. Still careful. But more certain than the first night in the car. His hand slid from my arm to the side of my neck, thumb resting just below my ear. I felt him exhale when I leaned into it. The kiss lasted longer. Not rushed. Not experimental. Just steady. When we pulled back, he stayed close, forehead resting lightly against mine. Still feels right, he murmured. I let out a quiet breath. Yeah, I admitted. His hand didn't move away. Neither did mine. After a moment, he said something that made my stomach flip. So, if I'm not dating anyone else? I opened my eyes. Yeah. He hesitated, just for a second. Are you? That question hadn't come up yet. No, I said. Another pause. Then, carefully, do you want to? I understood what he was really asking. I shook my head slightly. No. Relief softened his expression immediately. Good, he said quietly. We stayed like that for another minute, close enough that the rest of the world felt distant. The dangerous part wasn't that Larry was confused anymore. The dangerous part was that he wasn't confused at all. And for the first time since this started, a new thought settled in my chest. This wasn't practice. This wasn't experimenting. Somewhere along the way, my best friend had decided he wanted me. And I was starting to realize I might not be able to walk away from that. The first time Larry introduced me differently, it caught me off guard. We were at a small house party, mutual friends from college. Nothing wild. Just drinks, music, people squeezed into a living room that was too small for the number of bodies in it. Normally, Larry and I would split up at things like this. He'd gravitate toward whoever was talking sports or work gossip. I'd float between groups, sometimes ending up in the kitchen with whoever seemed interesting. This time, he stayed next to me, not glued to my side, just there. His hand would brush mine when he laughed. His shoulder would bump mine when someone squeezed past. Casual, but consistent. I tried not to overthink it. Then Jason, one of the guys from our old marketing class, walked up. Steven, he said, clapping me on the shoulder. Man, I haven't seen you in forever. Yeah, it's been a minute, I said. Jason glanced at Larry. You two still inseparable? I opened my mouth to say something light. Something safe. But Larry beat me to it. Yeah, he said easily. Pretty much. Jason grinned. That's cute. You guys dating yet, or what? He meant it as a joke. He was already laughing when he said it. I felt my body tense slightly, waiting for Larry's usual response. A scoff. A shut up. Something to deflect. Instead, Larry just shrugged. Yeah, he said. Jason blinked. Wait. What? Yeah, Larry repeated, calm as ever. We are. The room didn't go silent or anything dramatic like that. Music was still playing. People were still talking. But in that tiny bubble around us, everything shifted. Jason looked between us. You're serious? Larry's hand slid into mine. Not hidden. Not subtle. Just there. Yeah, he said again. My heart was pounding so hard I barely heard Jason mumble something like, oh, cool. Damn, before awkwardly backing off. As soon as he was out of earshot, I turned to Larry. What was that? I asked under my breath. He looked at me, brows slightly raised. What? You just… I lowered my voice further. You just said we're dating. He didn't look flustered. He didn't look pressured. He looked steady. Are we not? He asked. That stopped me. Because we hadn't actually labeled anything. We'd been taking it slow, seeing where it went, not rushing. But we hadn't talked about this. You didn't hesitate, I said. I didn't want to. The simplicity of that answer made my chest tighten. You're okay with people knowing? I asked carefully. He nodded. I'm not ashamed, he said. Why would I act like I am? There was no defensiveness in his voice, just honesty. And if someone reacts weird? I pressed. Larry shrugged lightly. Then that's their problem. God. 6 months ago, he couldn't even admit he was jealous of a guy flirting with me. Now he was holding my hand in a crowded room without blinking. Stephen, he said more softly, noticing the way I was staring at him. If this is too fast, tell me. It wasn't too fast. It was just a lot. You're sure? I asked. I'm sure, he said. And then, more quietly, so only I could hear. I don't want you thinking I'm still figuring out if I want this. The weight of that settled between us. Because I do, he added. My throat felt tight. You want this, I repeated. He squeezed my hand gently. I want you. There it was again. Clear. Direct. No hesitation. For a second, I didn't care about the party. Or who might be watching. I leaned in and kissed him. Not long. Not dramatic. Just enough to feel the warmth of him, the certainty. When I pulled back, he was smiling. You're getting good at this, I murmured. He smirked slightly. Good teacher. I rolled my eyes, but my chest felt lighter than it had in days. Later that night, when we stepped outside to get some air, the quiet hit us both at once. Streetlights. Cool night breeze. Distant music through the walls. Larry leaned back against the brick wall, pulling me gently between his arms. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I said. You looked like you were about to pass out in there. I laughed softly. I just didn't expect you to go public like that. He nodded. I didn't expect it either, he admitted. It just felt wrong to pretend. There was a pause. Are you scared? He asked. I considered that. Not of you, I said honestly. Of what then? Of losing this, I admitted. He looked at me carefully. You won't lose me, he said. You can't promise that. He tilted his head slightly. I can promise I'm not walking away because I got curious. That was the first time he acknowledged the difference. I'm not experimenting, he continued quietly. I'm choosing. Choosing. The word settled deep. And if someone asked you if you're gay now? I asked. He shrugged lightly. I'll tell them I'm into you. The simplicity of that answer almost knocked the breath out of me. And if they want a label? Then they can pick one, he said. I don't really care. He brushed his thumb along my jaw, a habit he'd picked up without realizing. I just care about whether you're still here. I didn't hesitate. I am. He leaned down and kissed me again. This one wasn't careful or questioning. It was confident, grounded. And for the first time since this started, the fear in my chest eased just a little. Because my best friend wasn't practicing anymore. He wasn't testing the waters. He wasn't hiding. He was standing next to me. And he wasn't letting go. The first time we fought, it wasn't about jealousy. It wasn't about labels. It was about silence. About 3 weeks after Larry had casually told half a party we were dating, something shifted. Not in a dramatic way. Just subtle. He was still affectionate. Still steady. Still showing up. But he got quieter. It started small. He'd read my texts and respond an hour later. He'd zone out mid-conversation. He'd cancel once or twice with work's been crazy. Normally, I wouldn't overthink it. But this wasn't normal territory. This was new. Fragile. So yeah, I overthought it. We were back at my apartment, sitting on opposite ends of the couch for the first time in weeks. He was staring at his phone. I was staring at him. You're somewhere else, I said finally. He blinked, like he'd just remembered I was in the room. Huh. You're somewhere else, I repeated. I'm right here. No, you're not. Silence. He locked his phone and set it down. Okay, he he said slowly. What's going on? What's going on? I laughed lightly, but it wasn't funny. You tell me. He frowned. I don't understand. You've been distant, I said. And I don't know if I did something or if you're just. Just what? Just realizing this is too much. There it was. The fear I'd been sitting on. His jaw tightened slightly. That's what you think. I don't know what to think, I admitted. You went from, I'm choosing you, to acting like you're halfway out the door. He leaned back against the couch, exhaling sharply. I'm not halfway out the door. Then why does it feel like you are? The tension in the room thickened. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Because this is new for me, he said finally. And sometimes I get in my own head about it. About what? I pressed. About how fast everything changed, he admitted. About my parents. About what this means long term. That hit different. You didn't tell me you were worried about your parents, I said more quietly. I didn't want to make it your problem. It is my problem, I said. If you're stressing about us. He shook his head. I'm not stressing about us, he said. I'm stressing about everything around us. There was a difference. But in the moment, it didn't feel like one. You haven't pulled away from me, he continued. You've been solid. I'm the one catching up. I swallowed. So why didn't you just say that? Because I didn't want you thinking I was doubting you. My chest tightened slightly. Are you? I asked. He looked at me directly. No. Not defensive. Not rushed. Just firm. I'm not doubting you, he said. I'm adjusting. That word felt honest. I've spent 24 years thinking my life was going one direction, he went on. And now it looks different. Different because of me? I asked quietly. Different because I want something I didn't plan for, he said. That's not a bad thing. It's just a shift. The tension in my shoulders eased slightly. So when you get quiet, I said, it's not because you're regretting this. No, he said immediately. Or because you want to talk to other people. He shook his head. I don't want other people. There it was again. Clear. Simple. I exhaled slowly. Then next time, I said, don't disappear into your head without telling me. I can't read your mind. A faint smile tugged at his lips. Yeah, fair. He shifted closer on the couch. Not all the way. Just enough that our knees touched again. I'm not perfect at this yet, he said. You're not supposed to be, I replied. I don't want you thinking I'm going to wake up one day and say this was a phase. I held his gaze. Then don't give me silence, I said softly. Give me honesty. He nodded. Okay. Another quiet moment passed. Then he reached for my hand. Stephen, he said quietly. Yeah. I don't regret this. The words felt heavier than anything else he'd said tonight. I don't either, I admitted. He pulled me closer this time, until my shoulder was against his chest. This isn't a phase, he murmured into my hair. It's not confusion. What is it then? I asked. He didn't hesitate. It's you. That was the part that scared me the most. Not because it was uncertain, but because it wasn't. He wasn't stumbling forward anymore. He wasn't testing. He was choosing, even when it felt complicated. And for the first time since this started, I realized something quietly but clearly. This wasn't about teaching Larry how to flirt. It wasn't about practice. It wasn't even about him figuring out if he liked guys. It was about him realizing he liked me. And somehow, somewhere between late-night lessons and accidental confessions, I'd stopped being his teacher. I'd become his person. It happened on an ordinary Sunday. No party. No dramatic confession. No heavy conversation about labels or parents or the future. Just us. Larry was at my apartment again, stretched out on my bed like he'd always belonged there. We'd ordered food, watched half a movie, ignored the rest. It felt comfortable. Too comfortable. The kind of comfort that sneaks up on you. I was leaning back against the headboard, scrolling through something on my phone when he shifted closer, resting his head against my chest. He'd started doing that recently. Small things. Casual closeness. Like it wasn't new anymore. You're quiet, I murmured. Just thinking. Dangerous. He huffed softly against me. Shut up. I smiled and set my phone aside. What about? He didn't answer right away. His fingers traced lazy patterns over my stomach, absent-minded. Then, quietly. Do you ever think about how weird this would have sounded a year ago? I laughed lightly. Which part? You asking me to teach you how to flirt? Or you basically moving into my bed? He tilted his head slightly, looking up at me. All of it. I brushed my thumb along his jaw without thinking. Yeah, I admitted. It would have sounded insane. And now it just feels normal. He studied my face carefully. I like that it feels normal, he said. That wasn't something he would have admitted a month ago. Me too, I said. There was a pause. Then he asked something that shifted everything. Do you love me? It wasn't dramatic. He didn't look scared. He just looked steady. The question knocked the air out of me anyway. Larry, I breathed. I'm not asking for pressure, he added quickly. I need to know if we're heading somewhere real. Or if this is still, let's see. There it was. The line we'd been walking toward. Slow, careful, but inevitable. I looked at him, really looked at him. The guy who'd sat in my car weeks ago, unsure and nervous. The guy who'd chosen me in a crowded room. The guy who'd admitted he wasn't confused anymore. You're not practice, I said quietly. His eyes didn't leave mine. That's not what I asked. I exhaled slowly. I didn't plan on falling for my best friend, I admitted. That wasn't part of the deal. Yeah, he said softly. Same. I swallowed. But somewhere along the way, I continued. You stopped feeling like something fragile. He waited. You started feeling like home. His expression shifted, just slightly. Softer. Stephen, he said again, almost like he was grounding himself. I don't know when it happened, I went on. But yeah, I love you. The words didn't feel rushed. They didn't feel forced. They felt settled. For a second, he just stared at me. Then he let out a breath that sounded like he'd been holding it for weeks. Okay, he whispered. Okay. I repeated. He smiled, a real one. Not teasing. Not arrogant. Yeah. Okay. His hand slid up to the back of my neck, pulling me down into a kiss that felt different than all the others. Not exploratory. Not testing. Grounded. Certain. When we pulled back, he rested his forehead against mine. I love you too, he said quietly. The simplicity of it hit harder than anything dramatic ever could have. Not I think. Not I might. Just I do. You sure? I teased softly, even though my chest felt too full. He smiled faintly. I'm not experimenting anymore, he said. I laughed under my breath. You haven't been for a while. No, he agreed. I haven't. He shifted closer, wrapping his arms around me fully this time, like he wasn't holding back even a little. I asked you to teach me how to flirt with guys, he murmured. And I said, and you ruined it, he replied. Oh yeah. Yeah. Now I don't want to flirt with anyone else. I shook my head lightly. You were supposed to be learning. I did learn. What? He looked up at me, eyes steady and warm. That when something feels right, you don't ignore it. I smiled. That was lesson 2. Yeah, he said. Best one. We lay there like that for a long time. No tension. No uncertainty. Just quiet. And somewhere in that stillness, I realized something simple and undeniable. It had never really been about him learning how to flirt. It had been about him learning how to admit what he already felt. And once he did, he didn't hesitate again. About 2 months after Larry asked me to teach him how to flirt, we ended up back in the same car where it all started. Same parking spot outside his apartment. Same cracked windows. Same quiet street. Except nothing about us felt the same. He was in the driver's seat this time. I was leaning back, watching him with that familiar mix of disbelief and affection that had become my normal state. You remember what you said that night? I asked. He smirked faintly. Probably something embarrassing. You said I was safe. He winced. Okay, yeah, that was bad. It wasn't bad, I said softly. It just wasn't the whole truth. He turned slightly in his seat, studying my face. What was the whole truth? I smiled a little. You weren't practicing because I was safe, I said. You were practicing because you trusted me. He went quiet at that. And because somewhere deep down, I continued, you already knew it wasn't just practice. He didn't deny it. I think I did, he admitted. The streetlight above us flickered faintly, casting soft shadows across his face. He looked different than he had that first night. Not uncertain. Not tense. Grounded. I was scared of saying it out loud, he went on. That I didn't just want to figure out if I liked guys. I wanted you. My chest tightened, but in a steady way. Not panicked. Not fragile. You could have lost me, I said quietly. I know. And you still risked it. He nodded. Yeah. There was no dramatic music. No cinematic moment. Just honesty. You know what's crazy? He added. What? I don't even think about it like I'm dating a guy anymore. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, I just think I'm dating you. The simplicity of that answer still had the power to undo me. And if someone asked you what changed? I asked. He shrugged lightly. I figured out who I wanted. No labels. No speeches. No grand identity crisis. Just choice. He reached across the center console, lacing his fingers with mine like he'd done 100 times now. You ever regret answering me that night? He asked. When you asked for flirting lessons? Yeah. I smiled faintly. If I'd said no, I admitted, I would have spent the rest of my life wondering. He squeezed my hand. Me too. There was something peaceful about that realization. We hadn't planned this. We hadn't chased it. We just stopped pretending. After a moment, he shifted closer, leaning across the console to press a slow kiss against my mouth. Not urgent, not searching, just familiar. When he pulled back, his forehead rested lightly against mine like it always did. You know, he murmured, I'm still technically learning. Oh yeah, I asked softly. Yeah, learning what? He smiled against my lips. How to love you better. That was it. That was the moment everything settled. Not because it was perfect, not because we'd solved every future complication, but because neither of us was holding back anymore. I used to think I was teaching my best friend how to flirt with guys. What actually happened was this. He taught himself how to be honest. And I learned that sometimes the person who asks for a lesson already knows exactly who they want to practice with. And this time, it wasn't practice. It was real.